Today we're going to talk about a recipe that is very, very special to me. Scallion Pancakes. The name in Mandarin for Scallion Pancakes is 葱油饼, onion, oil, cake. The recipe is literally in the name. Now this isn't to be confused with a similar dish called 手抓饼, hand grab cake, which is a more flaky, pull-apart version of the Scallion pancake. One of the most important aspects of the Scallion pancake is the chewing experience, which is why, although it's originally from China, it's become so prominently known in Taiwanese cuisine. My grandfather was originally from a city in China called Suzhou, which is right next to Shanghai. And Shanghai is thought to be a possible origin of the Chinese Scallion pancake. This is because Shanghai has been an ethnically diverse hub for centuries, and there's always been a significant Indian population in Shanghai. So this is possibly our version of the paratha. Growing up, I always spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my grandparents. Every vacation or holiday, my aunts, uncles, cousins would all come together, and it's always been a tradition for everyone to gather in the kitchen and help out, especially when it was time to make Scallion pancakes. I've been making Scallion pancakes for over 20 years now. And along the way, I have added my own little touches and techniques here and there. So today, I'm going to teach you how to make some of the best Scallion pancakes you will ever have. The first thing we have to do is make our dough. This is the most difficult part of the recipe to do correctly, but it is important to make it as perfectly as you can, because the dough is the foundation, the canvas for your Scallion pancakes. There are two key factors to making the dough correctly. The closer you can get the dough to being almost too sticky to work with, the better the texture will be at the end. I've always mixed the flour and water by feel, but as a starting point, you can go with a 1-to-1 ratio by weight. Let's say 600 grams of flour and 600 grams of water. The other key is you have to use hot water just off the boil. This is going to give us that bouncy chewiness. Pour the water into the flour gradually as you mix it together. I always use 4 chopsticks to do the stirring. It's very easy to unstick the dough from the chopsticks. You should end up with a texture that looks like this. Once it does, pour the dough onto the work surface. It'll still be very hot, so be careful as you compress and rotate the dough. Begin to knead the dough as it comes together. You'll eventually find a pressure that is firm but at the same time gentle so the dough doesn't stick to you. You can free the sticky dough from your hands by rubbing them together. You can free sticky dough from the surface by using a scraper or by rubbing it with your fingers. You could also use some dry flour, but try not to use too much. Knead the dough for 5 to 10 minutes. It'll get mushier and mushier as the gluten chains form. Once you feel the dough is fully kneaded or you get tired, shape your dough into a ball. Place it in the mixing bowl, cover it, and let it rest for at least 2 hours. We'll take this time to chop the scallions. Cut off the roots, but keep as much of the white part as possible. Split them down the middle before chopping to avoid large circular pieces, as they can give you inconsistent pockets of moisture. I then chop the scallions at an angle, and this gives me more jagged edges for flavor. If you end up with pieces that are a little too big, you can give the pile another chop. Scoop them up and place them in a bowl. It's time to wake up the dough. Lightly dust the work surface, knead the dough a little bit, and roll it out into a log. Cut the log into individual pieces. Each one of these will be its own pancake. Around 150 to 160 grams per dough ball is good for a pancake around 7 inches in diameter. To make the pancakes, we'll dust the work surface, dust the rolling pin, and roll out the dough ball to flatten it. I use a traditional Chinese rolling pin which allows for a lot of dexterity and feel. Flatten the dough gradually, turning it 90 degrees every time you flip it. Ideally, you'll want to make as big of a rectangle as possible. This will give us the layers and more surface area to hold the scallions. Spread about 2 spoonfuls of oil across the dough. Traditionally, we use a roux made from pork fat and some flour, but you can use ghee or vegetable oil. Today I'm using a roux that's half pork fat, half grapeseed oil, and some flour. Next, sprinkle some salt evenly across the surface. And now for the scallions. I like to use a lot of scallions, which is why I chop them into such tiny pieces. Spread them evenly until you've covered the entire surface. And now we roll it up, using light flicks to free the dough from the surface without ripping it. Roll this into a snail, and tuck the tail underneath. Now roll this into a pancake, using light dustings of flour as needed. The way I make a perfect circle every time is by rolling gradually. I only put pressure on this quarter of the dough from 3 to 6 o'clock, and then I rotate. Once you've rolled over the entire pancake once, flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. This will give you consistent thickness and prevent the scallions from bursting out, but if it happens, it's okay. Repeat this process until you're satisfied with the size and shape. You can store this in the freezer between sheets of waxed parchment. Now it's time to cook your scallion pancakes. Heat up a pan and add some oil. You'll want to use somewhere between low and medium heat. Once it's nice and hot, place the pancake gently into the oil. Pour a little bit more oil into the center of the pancake. This will help it cook evenly after you flip it. From room temperature, it'll take about a minute for the first underside to become structured enough to free the edges and start rotating the pancake. From frozen, it could take up to 2 minutes. The goal is to move the pancake around to make sure it cooks evenly. If you're using an uncoated pan and feel like it's starting to brown but is still stuck to the bottom, you can use a thin spatula or spoon to free it from the surface. Flip it over when you can. It should look like this. This side is actually done, but you could go lighter or darker if you want. Let the second side cook for another minute. Feel the edges again and keep rotating. If you find that it's cooking unevenly, just flip it over and apply some pressure to where you want it to brown a bit more. Flip every 30 seconds until you're satisfied with the crispiness. Remove from the pan and place it on a paper towel to get rid of the excess oil. Let it cool for a minute or two and then you can cut it. If you've done everything right, the outside should be crispy and sound like this. And the inside will be soft and chewy. It should turn out like the slice on the right, but if you want it crispier like the one on the left, that's perfectly fine. We don't usually eat this with the sauce, but a lot of people ask me for one, so I made up a special sauce that's actually pretty good. Crush some garlic and mince it. Heat up some sesame oil, toast the garlic, throw in some soy sauce, a splash of Taiwanese black vinegar, and some red chili flakes. Scallion Pancakes, 葱油饼. Enjoy. Let me know if you run into any issues or problems, and I can try to help you figure it out. Please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, connect with me on the socials, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.